Hey guys, Jay here, welcome to EonsOfBattle. I am starting a new army, and it's one that I've wanted for a very long time, Adeptus Custodes. I really like these guys ever since they came out in, I think 2017, I wanna say. It might have been a little bit earlier, but I might be confusing it with Imperial Knights. I also kinda wanted to get into Imperial Knights, and then I didn't wanna get into Imperial Knights, and I still kinda don't, even though I own 6. But it's not about that. It's about Adeptus Custodes. These guys are so cool. I love the idea of the absolute pinnacle of humanity, the God Emperor's like personal bodyguards. The only thing that was wrong was kind of the models. I've never been a massive fan of the regular Custodes. Like they're pretty good. Everything you would want is there. The problem is they came out like right before Games Workshop kind of refreshed their range and their scale. And so they have all the right details. It's just they're all crushed into these tiny little packages. And so they kind of look mushy. Also, the shoulder pads are too big, the legs are too small, the waists are too waspy. Everything is sort of wrong. And for some reason, they didn't look like the artwork. Games Workshop redesigned Custodes, and the redesign is fine. It's just weird that like the classic John Blanche artwork with these pointy helmets and these big ponytails and these crazy robes, like the look of Custodes existed, and then they kind of space marined them where they just, everything was kind of wrong. And so I've always had my eye on Custodes, but I never really pulled the trigger. I did buy a box of these guys to turn into a kill team that was really fun to play in game. And I did a little bit of green stuff work to kind of bulk them out a little bit and fill out their shape so that their armor wasn't so like tight to their bodies. But overall, I think I kind of put the Custodes on the back burner. Then in 10th edition, I kind of reevaluated the Custodes because it's just like, you don't need that many models. It feels so possible. And so I read their rules, and in 10th edition, they were pretty cheap and kind of almost a horde army, or as much as Custodes could be a horde army. And they were very close combat focused. And I'm a Black Templar player. I already play close combat horde focused Space Marines. And so I thought, Custodes are still pretty cool, but I already play almost that army. So I think I'll just continue to play my Black Templars. But now in 11th edition, we got some brand spanking new Custodes. And for some reason, Games Workshop decided to do this and to go back to the original artwork. The new Custodian Guard are like perfect in comparison to the original artwork. They got the crazy cone helmets. They got everything that you'd want. Like they just redid it. And weirdly, these models are for 30K and 40K. The Games Workshop keeps saying that. They haven't been incredibly explicit that these models are meant for 40K. They're definitely made for 30K, but the same exact units are available in 40K, so you can definitely swap between the two. But now that like all of the components exist, the dreadnoughts, all of the vehicles are no longer giant bricks of horrible, expensive Forge World resin. They're available in plastics. Like Custodes have never been more possible, and I have decided that now is the time. I've put together a test list. It's not finalized yet, but it's looking like 25 Custodian miniatures are gonna be in the list, and that is a very doable number. And so doable that I want to make it as hard as I possibly can on myself. I want my Custodes to be absolutely perfect, to be everything I wanted. I want every single one of them to be a perfect character miniature, because that's what they are. Custodes are the pinnacle of human technology in the 41st millennium. They take a baby and then through science and machinations, they turn them into a perfect being, a perfect warrior, a perfect philosopher, like a genius. The Custodes are the last remnant of what the 40K universe was like before the Horus Heresy and before the fall of like the human empire. They're the right hand of the Emperor. They're his favorite toys. They were used by the Emperor to defeat the Thunder Warriors. And I personally think that he was probably going to use the Custodes once he got the webway up and running. he was probably going to use the Custodes again to murder his Space Marines and Primarchs and then rule the galaxy with instantaneous travel through the Webway portal. And so like the Custodes are just such an interesting piece of Warhammer history. And so I want these guys absolutely perfect. One unit that I really enjoy are the Alaris Terminators, but they do have all of the same problems that I mentioned with Games Workshop's Custodes miniatures. They're tiny little wasp waist, itty bitty little legs. Like they're not quite right. So what I'm going to do, and I've already begun to do this, is I'm chopping them up. I've got bodies that I have already lengthened. I've got some legs and some feet and some thighs. I have taken these miniatures, which are frustratingly monopose, and I am unmonoposing them. I have clipped these guys and cut them to pieces because my plan is to actually cast them. Probably not like the torsos and weapons. The plastic ones look pretty good and I feel like I don't need to, but the legs I certainly do. And my logic is, if I can turn these guys essentially into the action figures, because there are action figures of the Alaris Custodian Terminators, if I can turn them into bodies, legs, ankles, and feet, then I can insert like wire and green stuff the under armor, and I can get any pose I want. And since I'm only ever gonna have probably 6 Terminators plus 2 Custodes shield captains in the Alaris armor, it'll be a lot of work. But again, 25 miniatures. Like even if I spend a day on every single guy, that's still gonna come together in a very reasonable amount of time, and I can be playing with these miniatures. And I can have the Custodes army of my dreams. Every miniature I want absolutely perfect. And speaking of perfect, the new Custodian Guard are still not quite perfect to me. I do really like the little ankle armor of the 40k Custodes. And so I took the legs and I carved away everything but the little ankle. And then I tried to silicone mold cast those pieces. This was my first attempt and it was very nearly successful. I used some very old mold release agents that I think was for the wrong brand. And I mean, it didn't work. It's still a little gooey and messy, but it looks like it wanted to work. And I think a few more tries, I could really get this working so I could have infinite of that little bit. And then I want to kit bash it onto the new Custodes so that I can have them exactly how I want. And I'm looking for a new opportunity to get better at sculpting. I'm getting a little dangerous with sculpting. Like previously I could like shove it in an armpit and get an arm a little bit of an angle. And now I can like maybe get a little bit of a foot, maybe get a little bit of a robe. I can clean up some gappage. I can kind of reinvent some of the texture detail that I've gotten rid of. But I want to be able to do anything with sculpting. If there's something that I want on a miniature, I want to be able to make it happen. And I think doing this Custodes army will really help me. It'll give me all of the opportunity that I need to get really into green stuff sculpting and green-a-putt sculpting, where you take milliput and green stuff and then you mix them together, which I feel like gives you the best of both worlds, where you have that slight flexibility and like the ruggedness of green stuff, but you get the really fine detail of milliput. And so I really want to use this as an opportunity to get really good at like just making miniatures my own. I've been doing that a fair bit with my Black Templar, but it's just every once in a while on like a character unit. And it's just not really feasible to do it on rank and file miniatures that I need a lot of. It'd be fun. It kind of wouldn't be fun because like part of the joy of Warhammer to me is starting a project and then finishing that project and seeing it all come together. And if it's gonna take forever, I will get bored. But if it's just a couple of guys, if it's just a little bit here and there, I can totally make it happen. I've already played around a little bit with these new Custodian miniatures. Frustratingly, the new Custodes feature men and women in the ranks, and the Lady Stodes are ever so slightly smaller, which is really annoying. Because then, you know, I can't swap the arms and the legs quite as easily. I don't get it. It's very subtle, but it's enough where if I take a Lady Stode like leg and I try to shove it into a male custode body, it's not, the fit and finish isn't quite right. I don't know why Games Workshop did it. Just make them the same size. It's all digital. Just scale them all exactly the same. It doesn't matter. You can't physically tell the difference in any way, so it seems like just like a really, really odd choice. Although I do like that lady custodes are now in the range. It changes the lore or whatever. Like Space Marines, their masculinity is really important to their lore. Their weird, like horrible stepson relationship with the Emperor is a really big deal. And it's really important to understanding like the psychology of Space Marines. Custodes are different. They are humanity perfected. And so I think it's a little bit more interesting just to see more humanity in their ranks. They're like perfect beings, but they're even more subservient to the Emperor than the Space Marines, because the Space Marines were able to rebel. Seemingly, that is not something that is even an option with Custodes. Similarly to the Grey Knights, there just seems to be something in their DNA and their altered DNA that means that they cannot rebel against the Emperor. And I do like the idea that the Emperor's personal project, his like greatest ambition was to create the Custodes and have them be absolutely perfect. But in the grim darkness of the far future, it's still a little iffy because they're kinda his slaves. They just kinda are. But they're, that's the reason that the Custodes are like gold and Baroque, is because of the Emperor's vanity. Like, he's not a good guy, even though he's maybe the best hope for humanity. I don't know, what are you gonna do? But the Custodes are such an interesting little like wrinkle of Warhammer 40,000. They're really, really important, but they don't come up very often. I've been reading the Watchers of the Throne series. I've finished the first book with Valerian and Alea, the Sister of Silence. And they're in the novel, they're so cool and they're so interesting. And there's actually a lot of humanity to these characters. And then, it bring it back to the actual miniatures of these two. And they're so bad. Like, why are they really, really bad? The old Custodes, they don't look as cool as they should. And weirdly, like, there's artwork of these characters on the cover of these books where they look fantastic. And then the translation into miniature form, Valerius kind of looks like Mel Gibson, and they just don't look as good as I want them to look. But I feel like I can do it. I can make them look as cool as I want them to look. With just enough absolute efforts, I can turn these miniatures into exactly what I want. I want an absolutely perfect Custodes army. I've already purchased some dice because I really like to have matching dice for my armies. And so I got these Chesic dice that are bone with a little tinge of gold in them that I feel like are a really good fit for the Custodes. What I would really like is some gold-plated 10mm dice, and I can't find them anywhere. There's a couple of examples out there of like sellers that'll sell like one 16mm dice that's gold-plated, and there's a lot of examples of D10s that are made of brass, and they look pretty good, but I don't really want them because they're so heavy. They won't be comfortable to roll with these dice, and they'll just like dent up my terrain and models if, I get a little ambitious with my dice rolling. So I don't know why. I guess like paint and just materials don't stick well to resin, so maybe it is just a limit of manufacturing, but it does seem like a weird blind spot of you can get dice of any like color that you want in this world, but seemingly you can't get gold plated. So if anybody knows of any gold-plated D10s, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to buy them, but I seemingly can't. I can do anything I want to my Custodes and I can make them as perfect as possible, but I don't know if I'll be able to find the dice that I want to represent them. This army is going to be a massive undertaking, but I think a very doable one. And it'll be even easier using some of the amazing hobby products available from EonsOfBattle.com. Over there, we're all restocked on our excellent hobby goodies: Gamer Grass Tufts, Grey Tide Studio Bits for your Space Marines, Army Painter paints, brushes, basing cork, ultra thin and ultra thick super glue, and we've got terrain. It's the best way to support us doing what we do by getting a membership. Each month, members get a credit for any one terrain pack we've ever made or the brand new one. This July, we have created the Bocage Battlefield, a series of pieces perfect for putting together a historic landscape for games of Conflict 47, bolt action, or any war zone with a labyrinth of overgrown hedgerows. These pieces will funnel your infantry into tight firefights while hiding the mysterious shack. Maybe it's just a utility building, or maybe it's an improvised encampment, hiding some flesh-eating zombies kept on ice for the right moment to unleash a devastating outbreak. This set was designed by us and is available at EonsOfBattle.com. I have had my eye on this army for years and years, and now I am finally biting the bullets. I think once I manage to actually get a proper cast working, I think that's when it'll officially start, because that's when I can move forward, because I'll know I'll have all of the bits that I want to complete this army. I suppose I could just buy many boxes and then grind everything to dust except for the parts that I want, but that's not very fun. Part of the fun is figuring out this casting and molding and replicating and reposing. Those are abilities and techniques that I want to learn and to get good at. And this is going to be a great opportunity to do that. I've already done a little bit of UV casting with a product called Oyomaru, which it's a little sketch, but it's like a Japanese toy that you put it in hot water and then it softens, and then you can shove something into it and you'll get a pretty good impression of that thing. And then the UV cure resin doesn't quite work perfectly with it because the UV cure resin heats up a lot as it cures. And so it does kind of damage your mold a little bit. I don't know, there's better and worse products, and I want to try a lot of different ones to really find what works really well to get exactly what I want. Because there's not gonna, often when I'm putting together my Warhammer armies, some things that are easy and fun to change, I will absolutely go ahead and do that. But a lot of things you just can't do. If I need 80 Kroot carnivores for my army, there's only so much I can do to each individual guy if I actually want to play this edition of Warhammer 40,000. But even if this takes me a year, I'll still have 2 years of 11th edition to rock and roll with some games of Adeptus Custodes. And I'll be rocking and rolling those games with the army of my dreams. I don't even know what it's gonna look like yet, but it's gonna look really, really good. I am looking forward to this, and Custodes players in the comments below, please let me know what are some of the must-have units. Do you take Alaris Custodian Terminators in 2-man squads, in 3-man squads? Do you do 4-man squads of Custodian Guard, 5-man squads? Is it the spears? Is it the swords and boards? The axes seem really intriguing. The Alaris Custodians and the Custodian Wardens have the option to take the axe, which I believe has extra damage potential, but less armor penetration. And so mathematically, they're worse in most situations, but maybe some of the situations that they're better for, those are situations where I need that a little bit more in-game. The Dawn Eagle jet bikes, they can have the bolters on the side, or they can have the missile launcher, which the missile launcher seems a little bit better because it's better able to crack some harder armor, which it seems like the regular Custodians aren't fantastic at. There's a lot of nuance to this army because they have so few units that have to do so many things, and there's just so many options. And those options I would love to know more about. So please leave it in the comments below. I am one day gonna be a Custodian player, and I am very excited for it. Thanks for watching.